This is Father Cameli, once again from Rome. Saluti da Roma. Greetings from Rome. Today is October 18th. It's the feast of St. Luke, the great evangelist, and it's a wonderful, beautiful day here in Rome. Now, unfortunately, Cardinal Supich has been called to a special meeting related to the Synod, so he won't be able to be with us today. But let me fill you in on a few things. I want to pick up on some discussions that are going on in the Synod, and I think they're very important. And the first thing is about relationships that are intra-generational and intergenerational. Intergenerational, between generations. One of the things that Pope Francis has insisted on is a very, I think, good piece of advice. Go to the grandparents. Go to the grandparents. What he's saying, it's not only grandparents, it's also parents, aunts, uncles, and so forth. What he's saying to young people is draw from wisdom. Be connected. So intergenerational relationships are so important, especially for cultivating the life of faith. But there's another side to this too, and that's intra-generational relationships. Within a generation, that young people have to be able to relate to each other on the level of faith. And one of the Synod groups took up the scene in the Gospel, in John's Gospel, where Peter, or rather Andrew, his brother, Andrew goes to Peter and says, "Peter, we have found the Messiah." In other words, he brings Peter to Jesus. And that movement within a generation of young people bringing each other to Jesus is going to be really important, very significant. In our country, we often talk about that as peer ministry. So again, these two perspectives, I think, are just really important. And they're being dealt with in different ways in the Synod. Intergenerational relationships and intragenerational relationships. All of that leading to a deeper, more solid experience of faith. The second thing is another set of contrasts between action and grace. Action and grace. One of the things that Pope Francis has spoken about in the Synod, but also in his homilies, is that young people, he says, need to be protagonists. Now, that's not a word that we use ordinarily in English, certainly not in American English, but what does he mean? He means they need to be actors. They need to take action. They need to do things and take responsibility and be creative, make initiatives, and so forth. So he calls them to be protagonists, actors, and that in the context of church, but also society at large. Now, the other side of that is grace. So it's not just a matter of doing, of on our own initiative, moving forward. And the contrast that has come up in the Synod, I find this just really fascinating, is the difference between trying to be a self-made person in contrast to a person who is called. So in our culture, American culture particularly, we really prize that value of being self-made, self-determined, and so forth. So there's a piece of that's not bad, but it's incomplete. The larger picture is not about making ourselves, but about receiving a call, being drawn by the Lord into a way of life, into a commitment, and so forth that really would lead to fuller life and fuller engagement in this world. So those are some thoughts that are stirring in the Synod. The whole world of relationships in families and among young people themselves. Also a need that young people have to understand and to hear that they really are actors, protagonists in this world and in this church, but that also, and maybe even more importantly, that they are led by grace, that they are called by God. You all continue to be in our prayers every day here in Rome. God bless you.